Today we're going to look at something I've been meaning to talk about for a while, Streamdecks. Now, in a recent series of videos, I showed how I had built this custom Streamdeck box that houses 2 Streamdecks and a trackball, and it fits really nicely next to my Resolve mini panel. But what can you do with a Streamdeck, particularly with Resolve or Avid Media Composer? Well, I'm here to tell you you can do a lot, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the 3 main types of buttons that I program into Streamdeck: hotkeys, multi-action macros, and programmable mouse clicks. Let's start by taking a look at my base profile on the Streamdeck. Okay, we're going to spend most of the time looking at the Elgato Streamdeck interface rather than shooting my actual Streamdeck with my camera. It's just a little easier to see what's going on. First and foremost, you will see the base of all my Streamdecks. The base profile has all the apps that I typically might want to access. It's just a nice, simple way to set everything up, make everything easy to access. It's a lot better than going down to the Windows, in my case, or the dock in a Mac version and looking for the program you're looking for. Everything's here at the touch of your fingertips. But of course, we want to do more than just call up individual programs within the Streamdeck. So what you end up setting up is, once an individual program has been launched, you set up a profile for that actual program. Now, my base profile is the apps profile, and that is what we just saw, all the individual programs that we can call up. But you also have the opportunity here to set up individual profiles for every other program, so that if a particular program is launched, that set of pages will launch as well. So let's just call up on the XL my Avid preset, and you'll see a very simple way of programming these. These are all my most common functions on the Avid, and the corresponding shortcut keys that I have programmed inside Avid are being shown here. Now, for Avid, I typically use 3 Streamdecks, the XL and then Streamdecks 3 and 4 that are above it. And XL is the really common used ones. 3 and 4 are very commonly used, but they're a little more precise as far as the functions they call up as well. So, for example, let's look at Streamdeck number 4. Here I have programmed in the ability to turn off and on video tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and audio tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's something you do all the time, turning on one video, turning off another video. So I've programmed those and the shortcuts for those into this Streamdeck. So if we were to activate the record, now there's a face only a mother can love. If we were to activate the record side and start pushing our buttons on the Streamdeck, you can see V1, V2, V3, V4. I don't have a V4 on my track right now. A1, A2, A3, A4. Just a real easy way to get those buttons to activate off and on for patching. Now, again, to program these buttons, really simple with the Elgato system. You are simply going to decide from within your Avid profile what shortcuts can you come up with to activate an item. For V1, I've got a shortcut of the number 8. So I simply, for V2, I've got a number 7, and whatever you have preset. So I simply have to program what is called a hotkey within Elgato to an open button on my Streamdeck. If I go down to my system area and I find the hotkey button, it's a drag and drop operation. So now this button needs an assignment. If I click down here and I press the number 8, this is now the same as pressing the 8 button on my keyboard. And if Avid is running, pressing the 8 button is turning on the V1 switch on the Avid timeline. From there, it's a matter of calling up an icon to make it a little prettier. Now, I've pre-made a huge amount of icons, and I suggest you do the same. That way the icons are a little more personal to what you want and a little more recognizable for your individual tastes. We'll just randomly call up a dissolve one for this just because it's there. The number 8 that's up here is because of the auto titling based on what the keyboard was. So you can turn that off. You can rename it to whatever you want it to be. You can add some extra spacing to move it up or down on the button itself. For the most part, I keep them blank because most of my icons are either pre-labeled or self-explanatory. But let's say a simple keyboard shortcut doesn't go far enough. Don't worry, there's plenty more you can do inside the Stream Deck. One example within Avid is deselect all button that I have programmed here. This is not a hotkey, this is a multi-action button. And a multi-action is simply any combination of any other function that Elgato allows. In this case, it is in fact 4 different hotkeys that all work one after the other to achieve a single goal, or a goal with a single click of a button. What happens is we get a view switcher. So it switches from either the record view to the play view, or from the play view to the record view. It doesn't matter to me which one it's switching as long as I know it's activated one of them. I then do a Control-Shift-A, which deselects all the tracks on that particular side. I then do another view switch, so we're now talking either record or play again, and we do another deselect all on that side. So again, I don't really care if I affect the record side first or the play side first. They're both going to get done with the press of one button. I press this button once, every track, video and audio on both sides gets turned off. So now with a couple other presets I've built where I can just switch my view from player to recorder, I can now use that and my V1, V2, V3 buttons and do patches from 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, whatever I need to do with a combination of these different buttons. Here's another one that I'll use quite often if I'm just shooting through footage. It's called Next Clip in Bin. This is just another set of hotkey actions, but what it allows me to do is call up a bin. Let me just go grab a bin and bring it over here. It allows me with a single button push to just cycle through clips from top to bottom within a bin. Just allows a really quick and easy way to shoot through a bin and see what kind of clips you are dealing with. So let's just get this out of the way. So you just have to kind of go through with your mouse and your keyboard and your brain and maybe a piece of paper and try to figure out in what way can I get this action to work. So here's what I've come up with. We do a match frame to call the clip up in our source monitor. We then do a find bin. That calls it up in the bin and keeps it highlighted. And we then do a arrow down and enter. That calls up the next clip. And we do a go to start. Takes us to the head of that clip. That allows me to call up a clip, go to the next clip, go to the head of the next clip, and just keep shuffling through footage. If you find your Stream Deck looks like it's filling up, don't worry, it's not. All you have to do is program in a folder, and then inside that folder you have a whole new series of buttons to start playing with. Here on the multicam button, we click on that, we see it's not a button, it's actually a folder. And in that folder is an entire page of buttons dedicated to the multicam action. All my patches for video 1 to 7, audio 1 to 7, as well as some program buttons here that actually patch from channels 1 and 2 to 3 and 4, channels 1 and 2 to 5 and 6, video 1 to video 1, video 1 to video 2, and so on. And this is all hidden inside one folder on one button on one of my pages. And if we look inside the trim button, it's the same thing. It's just a folder with a whole bunch of trim functions. Now the third way I wanted to show you was programming mouse clicks. And this is dependent on where your mouse is at different positions on the screen. This is a little more complicated and involves a little bit of scripting. But don't worry, it's not that difficult. If I can do it, believe me, anybody can do it, because I am not a scripting guru. So let's just jump over to Resolve and see what kind of scripts we've built for that. So what I'm trying to do with Resolve is make it as seamless from the panel to the Stream Deck as possible. It's still a work in progress. You can see the serial, the parallel, and the layer buttons here, and then I've added an outside, an add before, and a delete node button on my upper Stream Deck, as well as some other buttons underneath it that are fairly common ones. On the lower Resolve Stream Deck, again, it's mostly pretty simple buttons. You know, mark in, mark out. These are all just keyboard shortcuts that can be programmed with a regular hotkey inside of Stream Deck. But there's one button down at the very bottom that's particularly special, and that is a folder called Node Tree. Inside of Node Tree, I have built a series of auto hotkey scripts to allow me to select individual nodes in my color panel. Let's just switch over to my second monitor here. This is what I am just currently working on for a preset node tree inside Resolve. So the same nodes would be used every single time I color correct a shot. The idea being that they will always be in the same order and they will always be in the same location on my screen. Now, if I have the $30,000 Resolve panel, I can individually select any one of these nodes from its interface. I don't have that panel, but I'd still like to be able to individually say, I want to work from node 1 right now, or I want to work on node 12, I want to work on node 13. And I'd like to be able to just push a button and activate that node. So this is where auto hotkey comes in. I have built scripts to individually select any of these nodes in any order that I want to select them. Auto hotkey is a free program that you can download. I think it's both Windows and Mac. Yes, it's got some scripting to it, but it's not that difficult. Now, I'm not an auto hotkey expert, and I have learned a lot just by doing a Google search, but I will tell you that a lot of my information has also come from mixinglight.com. Joey Deanna over on their site has some really good Stream Deck programs that he has built for Resolve, so I encourage you to check that site out. So the layout of my Stream Deck folder is I can press any one of these buttons and the corresponding node number will select within Resolve. Bounce around them as much as you want. Your hands stay nice and close to the Resolve panel that way. You're not reaching for the mouse and clicking, you're just reaching slightly over, pressing a button on the Stream Deck. And then back over to the color wheels to continue working on that particular node. So the challenge, of course, is that within Resolve there's no keyboard shortcut, no single keyboard shortcut to call up node number 1 or node number 2. The only way to call them up is to click on them. The only way for a program to click on them is if it knows exactly where this node is going to be sitting at any given time. And obviously it's pretty easy to move these nodes around either on purpose or by mistake as you're working on Resolve. So how do we tell Resolve where these nodes are? What we've done is we have programmed auto hotkey scripts, one for each node button, that tells it the mouse coordination or the mouse coordinates for every node on this Resolve color preset. Of course, the color preset has to be in a very specific place, but once I get that place figured out, I am telling auto hotkey that node number whatever is at this exact XY coordinate on the screen. So here is the auto hotkey script for node number 1. Now again, I'm not an expert on auto hotkey. I'm an expert on doing Google searches. And this has been a lot of Google searching to get some of this information. I will tell you that over at mixinglight.com, Joey Deanna has a really good series on programming the Stream Deck for Resolve. He has some good program tips, and I have used that extensively for some of the programming that I have done. So check out mixinglight.com. It's a subscription site, but if you're in this industry, especially in the color industry, very well worth the cost. So this is a very basic auto hotkey script, and a lot of the information here stays the same no matter what you want your script to do. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines here do not change. This one in particular, the mouse get position XXYY records the position of my mouse pointer before any other actions within this script are done. At the bottom, mouse move XXYY returns the mouse to that original position. Why is this important? It's important because if I have my mouse at a particular position on the screen, when I push an auto hotkey button or a Streamdeck button, it's nice when that event is done that the mouse returns to where it was. That way I'm not chasing around the screen trying to figure out where my mouse has ended up. This way the mouse starts here, I run the script, and it ends here. The line above it, the coordinate mouse, or the coordinate, or the mouse speed is set to 0. That's the slow, or that's the fastest you can go. The higher the number, the slower the mouse is. So for the most part, you set it to 0 and hope for almost an invisible action. The line below that is set to mouse coordinates, or the cursor mode for the mouse is set to screen. This is, there's a couple of different ones you can put here. Screen tells auto hotkey that I'm basically using more than one screen, and I want to have it consider all my screens together as one big desktop. Otherwise, my cursor information or my mapping information for XY coordinates on the mouse get a little buggered up. This one took a little bit for me to find how to do this. It's actually a simple command, but if you don't know where to look, it just doesn't work. And then the main one down here near the bottom, this is the one that's specific to this actual script. I'm telling it to do a mouse click at these two very specific mouse coordinates, and I'm asking for a left mouse click. So the question then becomes, how do you know where these mouse coordinates are? Well, I have a script for that, and this again is a script I found through some Google searching and a little bit of experimentation. When I activate this script and I press my cap lock button, I get a set of mouse coordinates on my right hand screen that tells me where my mouse is anywhere on my desktop. So here back on my right hand screen, you can see right up in the top corner here, it's very small, but this is giving me a live update of my mouse coordinate. As I travel around the screen, I switch over to my other monitor and it gives me negative numbers on the X coordinate. So from here, it's just a matter of sitting with a piece of paper and going through your nodes or your screen and writing down the numbers that best show where these mouse coordinates are that you want to hit. So the next question becomes, well then how do you know where your nodes are going to be? Because obviously it's very easy to move these nodes around. And yes, that can be a problem. You have to get to the point where you know exactly where these nodes are. Now luckily, both Avid and Resolve give you a pretty good way of locking down your screen real estate. Avid has the edit preset and the color preset over on the side of one of their screens. If you've got the new version of Avid, the older versions of Avid did have other ways of saving workspaces as well. Resolve, on the other hand, has always been quite locked down as far as where stuff lies on its interface, and that's part of the deal with being able to work with panels. Now yes, I can resize my viewer screen. These thumbnails I can make one or two different sizes, but I can't move them or anything like that. I'm in dual screen mode right now, and it's quite restrictive when you're in dual screen mode. As you go around the interface, there's not a lot of these things I can move. I can change my clip size, and I can change my viewer size. I can change my node positions within here. I do have a cleanup node button, but that is dependent on how big my viewer is. So if I change my viewer and I clean up my nodes are all in a different position again. Change my viewer size again, clean up my nodes are all in a different position yet again. So we have to make a way, make a preset, make a workspace that we always know where our nodes are at. So for me, I've done that. I have, under my layout presets, Glen node graph and load preset. This way I always know where my presets are. That's funny, this one is actually not my preset. Let me just click that again. Okay, there is my preset node. So now I know exactly where these nodes are going to be every time. So anytime I'm unsure if they're in the right place, I can reset my workspace so that I know, or Resolve knows, exactly where these nodes are. From there, I can now go through, write down the X and Y coordinates for each one of these nodes, and write up individual hotkey scripts for them. So I have a script for calling up my preset, and here it is, all the usual suspects at the beginning, the set coordinates and all that, but then the individual mouse clicks for where the drop-down menus are all appear right here. Now the good thing in a scenario like this is your drop-down menus on most of these programs do not alter, as long as your screen resolution doesn't alter. So this one should work no matter what. So yes, I have a click at this position. I then have put in a delay of 300 milliseconds. That's just to allow Resolve to make sure it gets to where it needs to go and is ready for my next command. I put a delay after each one of these clicks. Some of these scripts you do have to be just a little careful to make sure you're not going too fast so that the program can't actually keep up with what the auto hotkey is telling it to do. And I've put a click at each stage along the way again just to make sure it locks in that position. So if we resize a few things here, let's just change this, change that, and what speed I'm wondering, I think I might have actually done this at speed, yes, I did this at speed 1. I think speed 0 was just a little too fast for all the reaction time from Resolve. So this is actually at speed 1 with the delay in between each action. So let's just see what happens when I go and hit the button. Hopefully it's not too fast to see. We should see the mouse shoot over, down, over, down, over, down, and call up my preset. So that was me pressing one button, and you can see the mouse shoot over, doing all the mouse clicks, all the drop-down menus. Let's do it again. Now it's not invisible to the eye because we've put in those delays. You can see the mouse moving around, but it's still pretty quick. I'm going to say how fast is this, a second and a little bit to go through that whole function. It's pretty smooth, it's pretty fast. So now it's simply a matter of calling up your preset for your workspace, and I want node 8. I want node 3. I want node 10. So now we can really fly around the nodes. We can call up any individual node. The mini panel does have a next node and previous node button, and now we can, if those aren't good enough, we can just reach over a little bit farther, hit another button, and call up an individual specific node. Now you could, in theory, put this recalling of the preset or the workspace at the head of each one of those node scripts as well, but I think that's a bit of overkill. It would add a little bit of a delay every time you press the individual node buttons. I think if you pressed it, at the head of a session, maybe every 15-20 minutes, or really if you called up an individual node and it didn't hit the right mark, then you reach over, you hit the button next to it to call up your workspace, and then call up the nodes, and you're good to go again. It's not that big of a deal if it doesn't work on the first try. And once you can program in a mouse click, now the door opens wide for you. The possibilities are endless, and this will work in Avid. I do have a couple of mouse clicks set up in Avid as well. There's a few others that I want to work on. There's some I'm working on, maybe shift drag some items if I can get that figured out. Again, once you start figuring these things out, then you just have to start using your imagination. And yeah, I'm not an expert on auto hotkey. Use some of the resources online. That's what I did. When you start getting into the programming side of the Stream Deck, the possibilities truly are endless. You just have to open your mind and start thinking of how you use your keyboard and your mouse, and how can that relate to the Stream Deck. I'd love to know what you guys do with your Stream Decks. Now that you've seen this, maybe you can start expanding what you do. I'd like to know what kind of macros you come up with. Please leave comments and suggestions below. I really want to know how other people are using these devices. Thanks for watching.